Hello. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of my podcast, The Black Hole. Today, we're going to be talking about blackness. What does it mean to be black, so-called black? Should we be black? Are we black? Who decides this? I'm going to talk about that a little bit today. Ever since I was younger, I never quite felt comfortable with the term black. I never quite knew why. I remember being in kindergarten and some other Afro American kids we're all coloring, right? They pull out the black crown for themselves. The white, they're coloring, and the white kids, they don't even color themselves. And I was wondering, I looked at myself here, I was like, hey, I'm the color of this brown crayon. Why aren't we called brown instead of black people? We should be called brown people, right? I'm on the exact color of brown crayon. There's no logic there. And if the logic doesn't make sense for a kid in kindergarten, why do we as adults accept this logic? Especially since the word it was meant to describe, but also from a European standpoint, it has negative connotations. Black means bad, negative, black plague, black death, all that kind of things. When they have a bad day on Wall Street, they call it a Black Tuesday, Black Monday, I believe. And you think, why do people accept this term when it's something we didn't choose for ourselves? I believe in never should you blindly accept things. You should always question things. This is a trait of mine I've always had. Got me in trouble in church, got me in trouble in school, got me in trouble with the family, everything. I'm going to ask why. Why are we doing this? Why is it like this? You should never accept things on face value. You should always seek to understand things. And with the term black, especially over these last couple years, I started looking into it more. For a good part of my adult life, I had the concept maybe don't let things you can't control define you, especially your ethnic group, your race. You can't pick that. I'm not gonna let that define me. I'm gonna do what I do. I'm gonna do what I feel like I should do. Nothing to do with black, nothing to do whatever. I'm gonna do me and leave it at that. As I matured a little bit, you start thinking about the future. You start thinking about the next generation. You start thinking about your children, the world you're going to leave them, the ideals you're going to pass on to them. And it changes the dynamic totally because it's not just about you now. Now you have to figure these things out so that the next generation, they have something to start with. They're not starting from ground zero, square one like I was. And so for myself and for the possible future children that I will have, hopefully soon, I decided, you know what? Let me think about these things a little more. Some things that I've pushed to the back of my mind, pushed out of my mind. And the term black, that's one of them. Now, in a certain way, I feel we accepted the term black because we really had no idea who we were. We didn't know where we knew where we were from vaguely, but we didn't know anything about Africa. It might as well have been Mars for up until I would say maybe late 70s, 80s. The majority of African Americans, they knew nothing about Africa because they weren't taught nothing about it. No one spoke on it. You couldn't go over there. There was no internet. There nothing. You couldn't Google. You couldn't do any of that. You couldn't watch YouTube. You couldn't actually correspond with people from Africa easily. You couldn't just hop on social media. You couldn't do anything like that. Well, they knew only what was in their immediate location. They knew that and what was passed down to them. And what was passed down to them, it wasn't all positive. Of course, it was pretty negative. The people who made the term black, they filled it with all these negative connotations. The people who accepted the term, not only when you accept the term, you accept the negative connotations of black being, let's say, the opposite of white, of black being, let's say, less than white, or of black being somehow bad, a negative thing, inferior. Now, everybody, I would say people don't accept all those things to the same extent, but it's there. It's there, even if slightly. Some of that has been absorbed, passed down from generations. Not only did your DNA get passed down, but ideals get passed down. And those things that are put into our grandparents, great grandparents, unless they're particularly strong individuals that somehow are going against the majority of whatever else is doing, then yeah, they absorb a lot of that negativity too, and they pass it down to you, they pass it down to me. And what we have to do is not pass it down anymore. We have to say, okay, we need to stop doing this. Just because we've been doing it doesn't mean you got to keep doing it. You got to sometimes examine your behavior, examine your thoughts, and say, hey, this doesn't make sense. This is not a good thing. Need to stop doing it. That's very important. And the term black, why we go by black when we know that's not who we are. They just called us that to differentiate us from whoever else was on the continent at that time. They just called us that because they were dark skinned. They just called us that because they saw it as a negative thing, less than, maybe to dehumanize us most likely. They didn't call us that for any good reasons. And the fact that we continue to go by black, it baffles me. It's like some people still use the N-word. I'll say the N-word because I'm not going to actually speak that term. Some people still use it and try to justify using it. Of course, using black is not as bad as using that, but it's the same kind of thing. Why take that word that was negative and try to spin it when you could just say what you actually are? We're African people. Yes, I know Africa is a word that came from maybe Europeans, but it was based on natives living in different parts of North Africa. They had words that were, they called themselves words similar to that. Now, what we need to do is, if we want to be most accurate, we need to find whatever the West Africans were calling the land and call it that. But until I research furthermore, I'm going to go by African. So I'm an African. Just like Asians are Asians, they don't call Asians yellow. They call Asians yellow. They call Mexicans or Latinos tannish, brown people. No, they call them Mexican, Latinos. They call Asians Asian. They call them Chinese. They call them Indian. What they are. What they call themselves is what they refer to themselves by, for the most part. In Europe, Europeans don't go by white in Europe. In Europe, Europeans go by Belgian, whatever the hell, German, whatever they are. Over in America, that's where you see the whites go by white, okay? Because white in America is all right, and black is bad, and brown is in the middle somewhere. But you see how backwards that is? I'm sure some of you did the census by now. Most of you probably have. But you notice that black and white, they break that down by color. Everything else is by your geography, your actual ancestral geography, where you came from. Everything, but black and white, they got to break that down by color also. That got to stop. And we have to be the generation that ends that on our end. Because we got control over that. We have control over that. The term black, I'm gonna I'm not going to refer to myself as black. It's going to be hard not to because you're used to such things. I'm going to go by African because with my DNA, I'm 89% African. That's African enough. I'm going by African. And I'm not going to play that game either. I'm not going to call the European Americans, I'm not going to call them whites anymore. Because if we're Africans, they're Europeans, just like the Asians are Asians. The Latinos are Latinos, or Mexicans, or Hondurans. We're going to base it off their nationalities, their geography, where they came from. We're going to keep it like that. We're going to do it like that because that's logical. That makes sense. And it erases the connotations that's around blackness, of being somehow the opposite of whiteness, of somehow being less than white. And it takes away the aura of whiteness too. Like white is somehow special, somehow something else. No, they're just Europeans and we're Africans. We're all just people. And we just need to start from there, start from that. Yo, we're people. I'm an African person. That's what I'm going to tell my kids. African. According to my DNA, I might make I might make a little episode about this also. I took my DNA from Ancestry because they don't want to break down the nitty gritty. They just want to give you like a little flash to look at. Maybe they're trying to be cheap. I don't know. But I went to this one site, uploaded my raw DNA. I wasn't expecting nothing. But they actually broke down your full ancestry. You get to see every little bitty thing, every little bitty contribution, and it helps you paint a broader picture, a more accurate picture. But it also, surprisingly for your African ancestry on this side, it actually helps you. It tells you, it can't tell you what tribe because we're admixed, but it tells you the tribes, the people groups in Africa that you're closest to. And I was surprised at that. I'm quite happy about that. So I'll make another video about that. Pretty much Bantu and Mande peoples. Those are the two African groups I'm closest to. Now, I think it's a Southern Bantu. So some kind of Southern Bantu and Mande, and that's in West Africa and South Central Africa, respectively. So, African. Just like if someone were to come from Ghana or Gambia, I work with a Gambian, a Ghanese, I think they go by. I work with them. Cool people. If they're African, I'm African. They got a little more percentage than me, but oh well. You can't tell by looking at us. You know. So, that in summary, who is black? None of us. We're not black. We're African. Should we use the term black? No. Use African. Or unless we can find the actual West African term for the land or the people. We go by that in the future. But for now, let's drop the black and leave it at that. All right. That's it for today. Y'all take it easy.